going on, Jeromes? Beautiful day for some Q&A. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions. We will get better at doing Q&A videos. First up, Scott. Don't you think it's a bit too early to label JJ injury prone? Had one last year by all accounts. He carried over from college. And at this time is 100% O-line. Yes, I think that's fair. And I think that's very easy to throw around the injury prone label because, I mean, 2 serious injuries. And yeah, with the meniscus, did he injure it in college? Then was it exacerbated in the NFL? Who knows? But the high ankle sprain is just so frustrating because he clearly injured himself in the third quarter and he got taped up. Tough kid. And the game was kind of out of reach, especially after that strip sack where the guy was untouched because of Brian O'Neill. Miscommunication up front. And he still trotted him out there. And maybe it didn't matter. Like maybe he didn't aggravate it further, but also it's not a great look. All right, maybe Wentz should have cleaned up the end of that game, and then McCarthy gets treatment. Don't know. All right, so it was a decision by Kevin O'Connell, but I think it is a little unfair for the injury-prone label because they're 2 unrelated injuries. But at a certain point, too, I mean, it's some bad puck luck. It's whatever, right? And if it keeps happening, then you have to be concerned, right? Because I mean, there are a number of quarterbacks. I mean, you look at Tua, you look at Steve Grogan, I don't know, where they just aren't, don't want to say not tough enough because that's obviously not the case, not durable enough for the professional football ranks. I don't know. But ideally, JJ heals up, and also he reads all the mean tweets, and then he's back after things, and we win a dozen road bars in the next 10 years. Trevnar the Red. How much do we think JJ's performance was mental? Dude had a hell of a 6 days to prepare for his second NFL start. I think we'd all like to see Brosmer instead of Wentz, but a fellow ginger I gotta believe. Thanks for the content, man. Skull Vikes. Yes. So, again, I'm not saying that he should have done anything different last week. Not obviously not saying that he should have missed the birth of his first child for practice. Right? Obviously not saying that. Right? But you do have to factor in there was a lot of things going on in JJ McCarthy's week. First off, short week, Monday Night Football to Sunday Night Football. The emotional win over the Bears, hometown team he grew up cheering for, etc. And people are human. We've seen the emotional hangover factor before. And McCarthy, if you've ever had a newborn child in the house, it's hard to sleep. Right, because there's always people moving about, and with the McCarthys, his first child. I mean, the in-laws, the parents are probably in town. There's a lot of fussing. There's a lot of hands. There's a lot of helpers around the house. So even if McCarthy was just told to sleep, I mean, it's hard to sleep. I mean, you're super excited too. Plus, emotionally, you're jacked up from that one game. You're getting excited for your home debut, Sunday Night Football, and I don't know, like. As I've gotten older, I've definitely found the value of sleep. It could be part of it. Plus, the elephant in the room is that, McCarthy, again, we're not saying he should have missed the birth of his child. Don't be stupid. But he did miss, so Thursday, is second practice for a Sunday game. That's a very heavy install day, right? And McCarthy missed that day of practice. You have to think that potentially factored in to the unevenness of the offense on a Sunday. And I'm not saying there's no judgment there. I'm just saying it is what it is, right? And that's what the case should be. So, I don't know. Yeah. Next. Carito, if the Vikings were to get a new offensive line coach, who would you go for? Also, do you think Carson Wentz could regain his MVP form from 2017 under Kevin O'Connell? So, with Wentz, sure. I mean, why not? Where Wentz, so the injury, he was still named second team All-Pro in 2017. But that ACL, they got beat to hell because the Eagles' offensive line was bad for a hot second. In 2020, Carson Wentz led the league in sacks with 50. So, and he's been a journeyman bouncing around. And I actually do think that, especially when the Vikings' offense starts getting healthy, and Darisaw finally gets back and Kelly gets back, that Wentz could find some success here. I mean, you got Jefferson, you got Hockenson, Addison's coming back, Jordan Mason's going to be running back one. I mean, there's some things here, right? And offensive line coach-wise, I do think it's time for the change. Because Chris Cooper has been with Kevin O'Connell since day one in 2022 forward. He's been on thin ice this entire time, where the offensive line, you spent all this money, $88 million for Will Fries, signed Ryan Kelly, first-round pick for Donovan Jackson. You extended Darisaw last offseason, and yes, injuries are a factor, but also they're not excuses. And school was terrible, and Rouse and Juergens will be fine, but I think that a new voice is needed, and I don't think there was an accident that they hired a new assistant offensive line coach in Keith Carter, who has extensive experience as an NFL offensive line coach in his own right, so I think it's time to make a change. I think that Cooper needs to go, and Keith Carter needs to be elevated to O-line coach. Go from there. Yeah. Speaking of the O-line, Justin Beauchamp, why is our offensive line so bad? This is why Sam Darnold was so shell-shocked, got the crap beat out of him, and shook his confidence. I just watched Tom Brady talk about it last week, how the NFL expects you to start right away. What if it has a quarterback already? Being da-da-da-da. So, going back to the Chris Cooper thing, where, yes, injuries happen. And last year with Cam Robinson, last year with a patchwork offensive line, it just wasn't good. Right, and you can blame the players, but at a certain point, it is that next man up mentality, right, where you have to coach the backups to be ready at a moment's notice and be able to perform. And you could say, well, they're not good enough, that's fine, but there's so many just technical issues that the Vikings offensive line have had, just miscommunications, misdiagnosis of the protection scheme. How many times first two games did we see free rushers hit JJ McCarthy? I count at least 7 in the Falcons game, probably 10 the first 2 games total, where that's not being good enough in one-on-one spots. That's not getting overmatched and overpowered. You can almost live with that, but that is just mental errors, and that comes down to coaching. Right? And that comes down to why Chris Cooper needs to, because he can't fire all the players, right? But someone needs to be held accountable for this absolute travesty up front. And I don't care that Darisaw and Kelly have been injured. Fries has been massively disappointing. O'Neal has been very questionable as well. And the guys thrown into the fire haven't performed. Right? So that could be a personnel issue. That could be more coaching, because School has played decent during his time throughout the league with the Bucs as well, the 49ers, but first 2 games, B Breaker. Could Josh Oliver fill in as a fullback until Ham is back, or is it too different of a skill set? In my eyes, it gives the quarterback more protection, and Mason behind Oliver sounds amazing. So we actually looked it up. Josh Oliver's played 1 fullback snap during his time with the Minnesota Vikings. Played a couple with the Ravens, but I don't know. I honestly think that it comes down to Josh Oliver's too tall. He's too tall for her, or she's too tall for him. Where I feel like, there are some tight ends out there. Giovanni Ricci's one of them, where they do have the tight end fullback capabilities. I just think that Josh Oliver is basically more of a light offensive tackle out there on the edge, and I think that's his bag. Whereas you have some shorter, stockier tight ends who are built more like a fullback, and then you have that H-back type role. So basically what is just really hope and pray that CJ Ham is back for Game 5, because I think that CJ Ham completely changes the dynamic of the power running game as well as special teams. So run it back real quick. Yeah. Anyways, that's it. Q&A for this beautiful day. You guys are the absolute best. You know what to do. Skol, production value.